Cageside with John Morgan.
And we are back yet again, another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. Let's kind of set the rundown today. Big news this past week, Kayla Harrison signing with the UFC, dropping down to bantamweight to take on the preacher's daughter, Holly Holm, at 300. Speaking of 300, that card is really starting to take shape. Are we happy with it? Are we disappointed with it? Probably another blockbuster needs to add thrown into it. We're going to dive into what we think the card is so far. Jon Anik, the voice of the UFC, got a little emotional. Understandable. We'll dive into his comments, and then the always wise Sean Strickland comes in on behalf of the fans. We'll get into it. But that man, John Morgan right there, you had a busy week as well. PFL press conference. It looked spectacular, by the way. Then the kickoff of CFFC Muay Thai this past weekend in Philly. We're going to touch on all that. To help me do it, John Morgan _MMA. Give him a follow on X. What's up, brother?
Man, when did you ever think you'd be uttering the words, the always wise Sean Strickland weighing in and giving thoughts? But yeah, man, it's crazy. It was, I was going to say it's kind of an off week for the UFC. There was no event. I mean, everything is lined up, for all the way through UFC 300. So it's going to be busy after this. So I hope everybody enjoyed that kind of Saturday off, weekend off, if you will. But yeah, it was anything but for me, man. I was down in Miami. I was down in Philadelphia. It sounds like you were busy as well.
Yeah, I had to drive 7 hours for a birthday party that when my mother-in-law lives 10 minutes from me. But we had to drive 7 hours. Yeah, remember I talked about it last week? Oh, I didn't tell you that
I knew you were going. I didn't. She lived. I thought you were going to where she lives, to her house, and I was like, well, that's nice of you to go make that journey. I didn't know that you could have just gone 10 minutes down the road and done it there. I would have just stopped you right there. I would have just told you, Eric, it's time to pull some strings. It's time to make some calls.
I'm trying not to lose my shit right now, John Morgan, so we need to stop talking about it.
Okay, all right. We don't need any Vince McMahon stuff happening over here.
Hey, we knew we'd get at least one in there. But anyways, so let's dive right into it. I think the biggest news of the week was Kayla Harrison signing with the UFC. Now, this is it's a big deal to get a judo gold medalist, a PFL champion, widely considered maybe one of the most, aside from her one loss, a dominant fighter in the game right now. Now that some legends have retired, but it's kind of crazy dropping to bantamweight. I mean, let's take us back. She fought 55. Her last fight was a catch weight at 150. Now she's dropping down to all the way to 135. That's kind of crazy. That's essentially dropping down 2 weight classes for your first fight. There wasn't a de-escalation of it.
Yeah, and that's the big question mark right now. So, Kayla Harrison, obviously to the hardcores, is a big name. To maybe more casual fans, maybe don't know her that well. Now that she's signed with the UFC, they're going to get to know her, and I think they're going to love her, man. She's a phenomenal fighter. She's great on the mic. She's got an incredible story. All those things. What you want in a human being, what you want in a fighter. Oh my gosh. And that leads exactly what you're saying, because she is built like a tank. And so dropping to 135, those are the question marks right now. I mean, you don't know how she's going to do it. Is she going to be healthy? How does she perform? Anytime anybody changes weight classes, you just wonder, does their body react to the weight drop? Well, now we saw a picture with Dustin Poirier that Dustin Poirier posted at American Top Team and had the awesome little thing just saying, hey, just 2 UFC fighters. And she looked like she was already leaning down a little bit. So it looks like she's already making that move. Listen, I have no question in my mind that she's going to make it. She's just such a professional. She's such a dedicated athlete. I mean, to be, as you said, an Olympic gold medalist, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, I mean, the type of dedication that takes is unparalleled. But how does she react to it? You know what I mean? If you're hurting yourself, if you're dehydrating yourself, if you're leaning yourself down, do you react well to it? So it is, as you said, biggest news. I love it. I love the move. I'm excited about it, but I'm also very, very curious to see how she performs.
a former champion, one that beat Holly Holm, is very curious as well. And sometimes Miesha Tate can be an agitator. She has that tendency to do so. But in these comments, it's very real, and she was very complimentary of Kayla Harrison. And she brings up some great points, like to exactly what you just said. There's no doubt that she can make the weight, but at what cost? There are diminishing returns. We don't have to look any further than, let's say TJ Dillashaw. Remember when he cut down to go fight Henry Cejudo? He just looked absolutely horrendous physically. And that's my worry here, because if we're going to come in and we're going to make this big splash with Kayla Harrison, outside of Triple C, probably the most decorated amateur athlete that the sport has seen. And I guess if I would have seen it, I would have liked to see that, like that subtle drop, so the fans do get to know her. They see what a specimen she is, because this has to be said. The game plan and the playbook on Holly Holm is take her down. Everybody has tried to do it. Very few are successful in it.
Yep.
And she uses her range and her space beautifully. A la see Ronda Rousey fight. Okay? Now, I know that was a few years ago. But let's just say Harrison can close that distance. Now with that weight drop, we both know that grappling in that regard of getting somebody to the ground, that wrestling aspect is the most physically taxing part of this game. At what cost is that weight drop going to affect her when trying to do this grappling?
Man, you bring up such great points there, and that's why I'm probably even more intrigued by this than I originally thought I would be. Like, when I first heard this matchup, I was like, you know what? Kayla's a monster. Holly's kind of on the backside of her career. Obviously a legend, obviously an incredible athlete in what she's done both in MMA and boxing. But I'm like, right now this is probably Kayla Harrison. But I'll tell you this news dropped the night before I was down in Miami for that PFL Bellator press conference. And so I was around some people and talking to some people, and they were all like, ooh, this is not a good matchup for Kayla Harrison. You talk about Kayla's game. Obviously, the judo is incredible. The takedowns are amazing, but it's a power game, right? She'll tell you in MMA, I'm rushing forward, I'm grabbing you, I'm throwing you on the ground, and I'm going to stay on top of you, and I'm going to beat you up. That's my game plan. If you can stop me, go for it. But I don't think you can stop me. She doesn't try to hide it. That's what I'm trying to do. But now, as you said, now at what cost? Is she able to have that? If she makes this weight cut as we think she will, as she makes it official, can she move forward and have that power? Does she have that energy? Does she have that strength? Does she have that explosion that she has? And then can she keep it up? Because Holly Holm, cardio machine, right? She does not stop. Yeah, maybe you take her down in round 1. Can you do it again in round 2? Can you do it again in round 3? Because Holly does a good job. As you said, she has great takedown defense, and she's able to just get out of those positions as well. She understands all the techniques. She understands exactly, I got to work to my knees. I got to work the underhook. I got to break the hands. I got to separate. She does all that stuff, and she'll make you do it over and over and over. So listen, I talked to a lot of people. My initial read was, you know what? I like this fight. It's 135 surprises me. That's probably a fight Kayla wins. I've talked to a lot of people whose opinion I respect, whose education in the game is no doubt. And they all say, man, that's a horrible matchup for Kayla Harrison. Holly Holm's going to win that fight. And the more I think about it, it almost seems like a lazy comparison to the Ronda Rousey fight, right? Obviously, Kayla and Ronda are two incredibly different athletes, but I think the game plan will be pretty similar, right? Which is, hey, man, I just can't let you get a hold of me. I've got to stay away from me. I'm going to stay on my bike. I trust my movement. I trust my cardio. You're going to have to chase me down, and I don't think you can do it. And while you're trying to do that, I'm going to cut corners. I'm going to evade, and I'm going to tag you from the outside. So while it's kind of a lazy comparison, I do think it is a fair comparison. I think that will be the game plan, and we saw what happened that time. Can Holly Holm shock the world again? The more I think about this, when I initially heard the fight, I thought as long as she makes the weight, she's good to go. I don't know if that's the case anymore. And I'm a huge Kayla Harrison fan, man. I love her as an athlete. I love her as a person. But yeah, this is no gimme in her UFC debut.
I have a problem with Not a problem. I think Kayla Harrison has a stylistic problem in this fight, right? It seems the path to victory seems so simplistic, right? And for everything you said, but we can't disregard, the way Holly Holm fights. I don't want to be that guy who says Holly Holm is a boring fighter. But Holly Holmes is not in tremendously exciting fights. That's probably a better way.
That's a really nice way of saying it. I like it. That was a very nice way of handling that.
Because she is so technical in what she does, is that she forces somebody to engage in her realm. Because she's only going sideways. If you watch her, she's hippity hopping each way. And at some point, I always get like, you're a savage on your feet. Throw them punches, throw them kicks. And she lures you into it eventually. And then bam, it will come eventually. But so if you're running forward, it's hard to get somebody who's moving side to side all the time, especially a judo practitioner who literally needs to grab you, needs to go either over, under, double unders. Yeah, and even the rare occasion, two overhooks. But you have to square it up. That's how a judo practitioner has to take you down. If, now I'm sure her wrestling's good in Kayla Harrison, but she's a judo gal, right? And it has to be a squared up. Holly Holmes is not going to stay squared up with you.
It's a great point. It's a really great point because, listen, Kayla Harrison works at American Top Team, right? So, they're working everything. The coaches they have there, the training partners they have there, the commitment, amazing. She's seen everything. But you talk about what she's done her whole life, what she goes to, what she knows she can do is judo, right? And as you said, you laid it out. In judo, you compete in a gi top, a kimono, right? You've got that on there. You're grabbing hold of things. So, when you think about the way Holly Holm moves, just think about the way when she's waiting to have her name announced, the way she just paces back and forth in the that's who she is, nonstop movement. She's not going to sit there and be still for you. She's not going to allow you to grab hold of her. And as you said, if Kayla was maybe like an Olympic level wrestler, maybe take a shot from the outside or grab a single and that sort of thing and slow it down, work from there. But we don't know if she's going to be able to do that. And again, and this is what I think makes it more intriguing. If we were talking about a featherweight fight, if we were talking about a lightweight fight for sure, which Kayla Harrison competed a lot at lightweight, and I would say I don't think she's a natural lightweight, but in the PFL, you have to compete multiple times in short order. So it was easier to be at 155, so she didn't have to cut. I think she's probably a natural featherweight. If this was a featherweight fight, I don't worry about that as much. You know what I mean? I say, yeah, okay, look, it's going to be difficult to track Holly down. It's going to be tough. That's going to be the challenge. But she's got the power. Eventually, she's going to get there. But going through this weight cut, going and depleting her body and draining herself, not saying she can't do it. Kayla Harrison, incredible athlete, not saying she won't perform. And I think that's what's important to note here. When you hear all these evaluations, when you hear what we're saying, I don't think either of us are saying, well, this is just terrible for Kayla Harrison. She's not going to be able to do this. But anytime somebody is looking to do something they've never done before, you start to wonder, hold on, let me think about that a little bit. And I think that's what we're saying here. That's why there's question marks here. That's why this gets so intriguing. If this is a featherweight fight, I don't think I'm intrigued by it. I just say, well, that's a great fight for Kayla Harrison. She's going to win that, and she's off to the races here in the UFC. But it doesn't seem like featherweight's happening anymore. With the retirement of Amanda Nunes, doesn't seem like the UFC wants to do 145 pounds anymore. They're not booking fights in the division. They're making people move to 135 pounds. Well, I shouldn't say making them. They're saying, if you want to fight here, you got to be at 135 if they're making that choice. But this is intriguing to me. So I'm excited for this. And I think it's a great matchup. And listen, I am a Kayla Harrison fan. I think people are gonna flock to her when they see her, when they hear her. If they haven't before, I think you're gonna love her. But this is a challenge right out the gate. I'm excited for it.
It's not like Kayla Harrison carries around a lot of extra weight either.
Right.
She's gonna have to.
Muscle.
I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast knows who Kayla Harrison is.
Right.
She's big. She's jacked. She's lean. She's mean. Okay. But she does carry a lot of muscle mass. That is what has to go to be able to do this.
Right. Yeah.
So again, I always bring it up, at what cost? So that over under, You know, yeah, you need technique, but you need that size and strength. To her point, the power to grab it initially, to then maybe bull rush you against the fence, to do this. I think she can get her down. But if we look at her past fights, she's not submitting girls either. She's brutalizing them. And she's laying on top of them and beating them up. Aspen Ladd took her to a decision in her last PFL fight. Okay.
Yep.
So am I going to say that Holly Holmes is going to get submitted in the first round if she got taken down? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Right. Then round 2 starts on the feet. Then round 3 starts on the feet. This has got so many questions surrounding it because of that weight cut. Could Kayla Harrison rinse and repeat at 45 at a catch weight of 50? 100% yes, that she could rinse and repeat it. We've been seeing it for the past, 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
But at 35, I know how taxing it is. Like, I know what it's like to cut weight and then compete. It just, you are not operating on all cylinders. And that's exactly what Miesha Tate said. She goes, look, I think she can do it, but at what cost? And I'm not saying this to and this is Miesha Tate talking. I'm not saying it to diminish Holly Holmes. I love Holly Holmes. She's so exciting to watch. But I know when I dropped to, 25, what I felt like. And to her, if you saw the Miesha Tate transformation over the last few years, she has done it exactly the right way. And if she's still not feeling like she's operating 100%, man, now dropping 20 pounds or 15 pounds, that's big.
Yeah, and I think it's a fair comparison too, because when you talk about Miesha Tate, it's kind of similar to Kayla Harrison, right? Like, it's not like you look at her and go, oh, she's clearly got easy weight to lose. Like, both of those athletes, right? They're lean, they carry around muscle mass. So to make that transformation, it is really a transformation, not just a weight cut, right? Like, you've got to actually kind of lean out some muscle and lose a little bit of that. So it's incredibly intriguing. Now, look, if we're looking to put some points back on the board for Kayla Harrison, is the fact that now she can use elbows. As you said, her game is to get the fight to the ground, to get on top. She hasn't had that, right? Because of the PFL system, because you're fighting multiple times, they've eliminated elbows from their rule set because they don't want people getting cut and then not being able to return in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever the case may be, to get to their next fight.
Forgot about that. Good point. Very good point.
She will have that. She will have that. So, that changes the game up. As you know, punches are one thing, but, if you're underneath and you can control the wrist, right, and kind of stop a lot of those punches. But if you're controlling the wrist, that top person can still, even while you're controlling the wrist, hammer down some forearms, hammer down some elbows. So, that's an extra tool, if we're just trying to make the argument for Kayla Harrison. And look, I still do. We've got, a couple months till it's time for that fight. But just as I sit here today, I still think I do favor Kayla Harrison in the fight. But again, when I initially heard it, I thought, yeah, that's definitely a Kayla win. And the more you really break it down and think about all these changes, all that's going to go into it, it really does start to lean you back towards Holly Holm a little bit. And listen, Holly's not going to get, and I don't think Kayla will be, overwhelmed by the moment, right? Olympic gold medalists, we know what kind of pressure that is, right? It's like you got to go up and show up and perform on that day. Like, it's so pressuring, so taxing, because it's not like over a season. Well, if you lose, that's okay. You can come back a couple days later. No, you got to perform on that day. So I don't think she'll be overwhelmed by the moment, but you never know, right? Even athletes from the highest level from other organizations, when they step into that UFC cage for the first time, the crowd's a little bigger. The lights are a little brighter.
Yeah, 300? A little bigger, a little brighter?
UFC 300? The media that's going to be around her, everything, the expectations. And Holly's been there, right? She's done that. When she knocked out Ronda Rousey, that was in a stadium in Australia. It was massive. So she's not going to be, affected by the moment at all, I don't think. So, man, if I just look at the athletes, and again, if it was at featherweight, if it was lightweight, I lean Kayla. But when you add in all these other things around it that are going into it, that are building up to it, it is an interesting matchup, and it would not shock me if Holly Holm is able to pull off an upset here.
No, it's not going to shock me in the least bit, and especially looking at track record. I don't know if I could draw a 1-to-1 comparison with Larissa Pacheco.
Right.
But a very powerful striker.
Yep.
Who sprawled heavy, right? Who avoided takedown in the later rounds.
Yep.
And beat Kayla Harrison.
Yeah. You're right. They're different athletes, right? I think Larissa packs a little bit more power. I don't think she's quite as mobile, but they do have a lot of similarities in their style and certainly in their game plan and in their approach. So while you're right, I think you nailed it. It's not quite a 1-to-1, but it's certainly some data that you can use there. It's certainly there's going to be some similarities. So, man, look, by the time we get to UFC 300, I might be talking myself into picking the other side because I'm telling you, when I heard the matchup originally, I'm like, Kayla all day, right? And I started talking to people, and they're like, Kayla all day? Are you serious? That's an awful matchup. Or look how much Kayla gets hit, even in the her striking. I mean, look, when the dream fight that everybody was talking about was, hey man, maybe she'll face her teammate Amanda Nunes. Maybe they'll make this fight happen. Or even if it was Chris Cyborg, right? The idea was always if Kayla can grab hold of you, you're in trouble because she's going to put her hands on you. She's going to throw you down. And she's going to get on top of you.
And you don't find strength and brutality in a female like you do, Kayla Harrison.
Oh, my gosh. She is an absolute savage, man. She is incredible. But conversely, with Amanda Nunes and Chris Cyborg, it was like, but if for whatever reason Kayla can't get a hold of them, they're going to knock her out because their striking is levels above, right? And Holly Holm, I think her striking is levels above. I mean, look at what she's accomplished in professional boxing. Now, does she necessarily pack that one-shot power? No. I mean, she's probably best known for, the high kick knockout of Ronda Rousey, but she's, as you said, I mean, she's had a lot of decisions, right? It's more about volume. It's more about adding up points over time than is the knockout blow. So I don't think she'll, one shot, one hitter quitter Kayla Harrison, but can she stay on her bike? Can she avoid? Can she move and touch Kayla Harrison in these little exchanges? Absolutely. It could absolutely happen. So yeah, I might not even wait till UFC 300. I might be switching already, man.
I'm going to go one further with what I think Holly Holmes is going to do. I think Holly Holmes at some point is going to then, because Holly Holmes is a huge 135er as well, right? I think Holly Holm, to a degree, is going to put her weight and pressure on Kayla Harrison. We see Holly Holm do that a lot. She does not want to get taken down, but against that fence, she can switch the position and she leans on you.
Right.
She leans on you. You can't. It's very hard to take somebody down with your back against the cage. So when Holly switches that position, that's just and what Holly Holmes is really doing there, she's just draining you. Jay, you ain't going anywhere. Like, here, match me, strength for strength right here. I'm leaning on you. I'm not using strength. You're trying to combat that using only strength.
So true. And all the techniques are right. Like, as you well know, in those grappling exchanges, it's all about technique. It's all about leverage, right? There's science behind everything you do. As you said, you get your head positioning just right, put it right on that chin, make it a little, all of a sudden it changes things because they can't get underneath you. You make sure that you have the underhooks and don't allow your opponent to do that, changes everything, right? It's no longer just strength for strength. Do you have the power to take me down? Because I've used all the leverage, I've used all the science and all the technique. And Holly, I mean, what an athlete, right? I mean, that's what she does. She trains every day. She gets herself ready. So this is a great fight, man. Again, it's so funny because when it's first announced on paper, I was like, good for Kayla Harris. I'm excited. Now, look, I was excited to see her maybe face Larissa Pacheco again. I was excited for her maybe to face Chris Cyborg. But to be honest with you, I wanted to see Kayla Harrison in the UFC. So when she signed this, I thought, great. They gave her Holly Holm. I'm like, well, man, tough for Holly, but Holly will fight anybody. God bless her. This is, great names for 300. But the more you dive into this, man, I think this is phenomenal matchmaking, and I think it's a competitive matchup. I saw the lines came out, and the odds makers, oh my gosh, the initial odds had like Kayla Harrison at minus 500 on the initial odds I saw. And to me, in my head, I thought, okay, yeah, that's about right. But I think the more you dive into this, it's way more competitive than that.
Yep. Totally agree. That's why we spent over 20 minutes talking about it when we really could have went 5.
But that's the kind of fights that intrigue us, right? I mean, if you're a hardcore, I think you're excited for this matchup, man. I really do. And if you're not a hardcore and you're a casual and you're just getting to learn who Kayla Harrison is, I'm telling you, I think you're gonna enjoy the ride, man. I think you're gonna like it. She's fun. She's a great athlete. She doesn't mind talking a little trash and having a little fun with it.
Oh no, she don't mind at all.
Not one bit, but she's also incredibly respectful, and I mean, she has an amazing story outside of the cage and what she stands for and what she's done in her own family's life and what she's battled through. So I think you're going to enjoy seeing her in the UFC, and I'm happy she's arrived.
Well, that matchup is going to take place UFC 300. Speaking of 300, this card is taking shape. I believe there are 11 fights announced. Usually on a pay-per-view, there's 15 to 16 fights on the night. So there's definitely going to be a minimum of 3 more added. With that being said, are we excited for the fight? Let's kind of go through what we know now. Zhang Wei Li is going to be taking on her Chinese counterpart. I can't really pronounce the name, so I don't want to try.
Yan Xiaonan. Yeah, I'll do it for you there. Yan Xiaonan.
A real interesting matchup too. Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway. I want to dive in there. Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. I'm stoked about that.
Love
fight.
that.
Prohaska versus Ratchik. Yeah, Calvin Kattar, Aljamain Sterling. Very intriguing matchup. Not one that favors Calvin Kattar all too much, I don't believe. Especially, but we'll dive in. Bo Nickal, Cody Brunage, Figueiredo, Cody Garbrandt. I'm excited for that fight as well. Holly Holm, Kayla Harrison, as we talked about. Another great fight here. I think so far you need to be a hardcore to really be excited about this card, but Sadiq Youssef and Diego Lopez, I am stoked for that fight. Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez, Bobby Green, and Jim Miller confirmed for 300. I want to get into Holloway and Justin Gaethje really quick.
Yeah.
Are you excited for that fight?
I am. How can you not be? I mean, listen,
BMF title on the line.
BMF title on the line. Two of the most fun fighters in the game. Two of the greatest dudes in the game. Two of the most exciting. I mean, it's just going to be a fun fight. So, yes, I'm incredibly excited. Now, listen, I have those same concerns I think a lot of people do, right? Max Holloway moving up a division against Justin Gaethje, who's an absolute wrecking machine, right? He destroys everybody. So, a little scary, yes, of course, but exciting guys, man. Guys that bring it. Guys that are going to have some fun. I mean, old school martial artists, right? Like, they don't need to trash. They don't need to talk trash. They don't need to make a story about anything. They're just coming in to have a fight. So, yeah, I'm fired up for that one.
This fight just worries me. Like from a fan perspective, a fan of both guys, especially Max the Blessed Express Holloway. Can he get it done? Yeah. I mean, he's got, self-proclaimed the best boxing in the game. It's hard to really disagree with it too. His boxing is phenomenal. But I just always have to go back to that Dustin Poirier fight. When Dustin Poirier fought him, and Dustin Poirier, he beats you up by volume and just precision, but he was hitting Max a lot, and every shot looked like it hurt Max Holloway.
Yep.
And now from afar, I've never been hit by both men, thank God. But I would say that Justin Gaethje packs more power than Dustin Poirier does.
I agree. And I think, like you, I have those, I mentioned the concerns that I have, and those are it right there. I mean, Justin Gaethje just absolutely destroys people. I mean, right? There's like some crazy stat of athletes' records like after they fight Justin Gaethje, where
we see that all the time on this show. He changes fighters.
He changes fighters, man. He affects you. He gives you long-term damage. So that part concerns me. It does. And because of that, I favor Justin Gaethje in the matchup, right? So, hearing the announcement of it, I'm like, yeah, that's probably a Gaethje win. But Holloway's the dude you can't count out. And Holloway wants to fight. You know what I mean? Is it a tall order? Yeah, it's a tall order. But that's what Holloway wants, man. He wants the biggest, baddest fights possible. He wants to put down this memorable track record. He's already, one of the greatest champions the sport has ever seen. So, his legacy is complete. And now I don't think it's so much about building legacy. Is it about just, continuing to be that guy that he is, that you want to tune in and watch fight. So, hell yeah, I'm excited for this fight. I am a little worried for Max Holloway. But Max Holloway knows what he's getting into, and he's a bad man. So anytime he shows up to fight, I'm in.
And listen, I agree with you. He wants to fight. I'm worried, but yet excited at the same time. And I think Max is a smart enough guy that if he doesn't have an avenue of victory here and doesn't believe in his skills enough, he's not going to take this fight. Now, the difference between Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier comes at it from a lot more traditional stylistic boxer perspective than Gaethje does. So I really think that's what Max Holloway is looking at. Is like, I can pick this apart.
Yep.
Not as easy as I was able to pick Poirier apart, because Poirier was more of a traditional boxer type style, where Gaethje's not. He's whipping leg kicks, and everything he's throwing is with massive power. So that's where I think Max looks at this as an advantageous fight for him.
What I love the language you use there. Pick him apart, because that's what he's gonna have to do, right? It's not let me go toe to toe and let's throw down and let's see who drops first, right? Because
don't do that.
Don't do that. We love you, Max Holloway. Don't do that. But I think you're exactly right. I imagine in Max's head that's what he's thinking. Like, hold on, I know he's got those nasty leg kicks, but I think I'm a little bit slicker. I think I'm a little bit faster. I think I can avoid those. I think I can move side to side. I think I can use my footwork and I can use my boxing and touch him up, right? I can avoid the big shots because Gaethje's kind of that bull rush, right? That just aggression, power. You're not going to want to meet him right in the center of the cage and see, you're not doing that point to the middle and let's go. No, you're trying to move around. And I think that's what Holloway thinks he's going to be able to do. And listen, he may be able to do. The man's hitting shots while he's looking off and talking about I'm the best boxer in the UFC. I mean, he's amazing. And when I say I worry about him, I worry about anybody that faces Justin Gaethje. You know what I mean? I just worry about any of them. I'm not trying to say that Holloway's not that guy, because he is that guy. And I think it's going to be fun. And what you know about it, man, that's one of those fights that you just know. There's certain fights that get announced that you just know, dude, this is going to be a fight of the night contender. There's no question about it. It's going to be amazing. I'm not going to miss this. I'm not rushing to the bathroom for this fight. I'm not going to get a sandwich during this fight. You know what I mean? I'm tuning in. And no matter what happens, man, they're going to have respect for each other after. And that's what I love about the sport, right? Is let's just go try to knock the hell out of each other. And then afterwards, let's give each other a hug and let's go have a beer together at the bar. I think this is going to be a fun one.
Off the card right now, as it sits right now, we just went down the list. We read it. What fight are you most excited for? Is it that BMF title fight? Or let me give you the correct answer. Or is it the Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan fight?
Well, sir, I would also like to go with the correct answer, Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan. It's different, right? I mean, look, Gaethje Holloway, you don't have to know nothing about fighting whatsoever. You don't need to have ever watched a mixed martial arts contest before in your life to watch that and be like, this is going to be amazing. But Oliveira and Tsarukyan, man, I want to see those grappling exchanges. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see what happens in that. Obviously, they're complete mixed martial arts. I'm not saying they can't strike and it couldn't be a good fight there, but the grappling that those guys both have, and Charles Oliveira, the established former champ, Arman Tsarukyan, who to me looks every bit the part of future champion, at some point in his career. Is that time now? Is he ready to challenge for that now? We're going to find out. So yeah, I love that Oliveira Tsarukyan fight.
And with all the I guess upside that Tsarukyan has, right? And everybody looking at it being like, this is the guy. This is the guy. This is the future of the division.
Right.
This is a huge step up for him.
Massive.
Listen, no offense to Bobby Green, but this is a huge step up for him, right? I think he's 5-1, 6-1 in the UFC now. I think he does have one loss in the UFC, and that, if I'm mistaken, Gamrot, didn't he lose to Gamrot a few years ago?
He did, and it was a bit controversial. A lot of people thought he won that fight. Also, don't forget about the loss to Islam Makhachev. But remember, that was his UFC debut. I mean, in 2019, and it was a hell of a fight. You know what I mean? So
yes.
He's had two losses that were both incredibly competitive. So yeah, I mean, I think, as you said, a lot of people believe he's the future.
So maybe it's not a step up in competition if he's fought in Gamrot and. It's not. But my point
is, But he came up short in both of those.
The point I'm making with all of this is, I don't know if this is our favorite fight. I don't know if collectively it's the favorite fight out there, because unless you really have been watching fight nights and lower main card and prelims over the past couple of years, you might not know who Arman Tsarukyan is.
Yeah. I would agree, and I think that's a little bit unfortunate. Maybe the fact that it's Charles Oliveira, which, I mean, you have to know who Charles Oliveira, right? The guy's been in the UFC for more than a decade. He's reached the heights, and he's just been a fun fighter all along. So, I think this will be a great measure too. I mean, you look at Arman, he's coming off a win over Beneil Dariush, but, Beneil Dariush, as much as he is a top-level fighter and we all respect his skills, the fight didn't really play out that long. It was a little wild. And Beneil...
I said Bobby Green. Dariush.
Yeah. Beneil Dariush, but a lot of people, I think, don't really respect that name as much as they probably should have, right? He was always that under the radar guy. He's not a trash talker. He's not, so he was probably flying under the radar. Then you look at other names that he has. I mean, these are quality wins. I'm looking at his record now. Joaquim Silva, Damir Ismagulov, Yoel Alvarez, Christos Giagos. I mean, Matt Frivola. All those. Hell, Davi Ramos. I mean, that dude's we love grappling. That dude's an incredible grappler. Olivier Aubin-Mercier, look what he's gone on to do at the PFL. So all those are quality wins, but none of those are superstar wins. None of those are casual fan wins, right? Where you win that and they go, oh, damn, that's the guy. So, yeah, I think this is a fight for guys like me and you that are hardcore MMA fans that love the sport. And I think anybody, I'm going to imagine that anybody that's a hardcore fan like us is probably feeling like this is the gem on the card. Whereas, the BMF title, that's just going to be fun. And that's great. And that's the one that's going to have the casuals up. But that's what makes this a great card, right? These are back-to-back fights. One's appealing to the hardcores. One's appealing to the casuals. This card's got a lot of everything. Might not have a main event yet. Might not have a headliner yet. But there's no way you can look at this lineup and not be excited for it.
Bo Nickal's on this card, and it begs the question, right? Now, listen, do I think Bo Nickal is doing things the right way? Yes, I want to say that first and foremost. He is slowly escalating his career. He's getting experience under his belt. He's making the walk multiple times. He's seeing different looks, right? Mm-hmm. But he's also very outspoken. And where he's going, what he's doing, and what other guys should be getting, shouldn't be getting in way of title shots and whatnot. Shemaya, right? But yet at 300 in this massive card with 4 UFC wins under his belt, I think it's 4, it might be 3. We're still meddling around if we lose this fight, we're getting cut, guys.
Yeah, it's a hard spot to be in, right? And I'm a little torn on this one too, right? Because on the one hand, bro, Bo Nickal's 5-0. You know what I mean? He's 2-0 in the UFC.
Only 2-0? He's only had 2 fights? I thought it was 3.
But you're thinking because he had 2 appearances on Contender Series as well, which that's why it kind of seems like he's been around longer than maybe most. Yeah, I mean, and even he's 5-0 in his career at this point. So, I mean, who at 5-0 would you be being like, oh, man, they need to be facing ranked competition. They need to be at the top. Like, man, there's so many guys that I talk about that, I think you should have 8 to 10 amateur fights before you turn pro. Then I believe you need to get at least 8 to 10 pro fights before you start talking about the Contender Series. And here's a guy that's 5-0 with no amateur record that we're talking about, let's get this guy up against ranked competition. But that's just because the kind of athlete he is, and obviously the wrestling pedigree is nearly unparalleled. So it's incredible. So I'm torn on this one. I think I'm kind of okay with this matchup. I really do feel like Bo Nickal still needs to kind of getting cage time, so to speak.
But you're not getting cage time when you're icing a dude 35 seconds into a fight either. Like, listen, you're getting a different look. Okay, I mean, I digress. Like, listen, if it was me, my career, my son's career, anybody else's career that I care about, I'm saying it. Take the Bo Nickal path.
Right.
But
he's not my kid.
Bo Nickal. This dude is a beast, and he's very outspoken as well. So he's doing everything the right way, and he's humbly but not humbling calling a lot of shots too, right? And so I just look at it, and it poses a question. I'm not taking a side here. When is that jump gonna happen? Supposed to happen? Should happen? I don't know. I ask you.
I think this is probably it. I think this is probably the last one. What you're saying is true because we believe Bo Nickal is that guy. At least I do. You know what I mean? We believe he's that guy. So I like
compete with Chimaev today. That is a war. That is a fight I want to see. Those two grapplers going at it. Bo Nickal has iced people on the feet. Chimaev has iced people on the feet. Would be so excited, and I would say that is a pick'em right now. That's how confident I am in Bo Nickal. Bo Nickal is a different type of animal.
I like what you said there, and I think that honestly convinced me because, as you said, typically the advice I would give to the typical athlete in a typical career is to follow this game plan. But when you find someone who is atypical, who is special, who is something different, maybe they don't need to follow that same game plan. Maybe they don't need to follow that same path. So I like what you said there, and I think you're probably right. it is probably about time. I still like this matchup. It's on UFC 300. It's a great card. I mean, Brundage is willing to take up and take that assignment. And again, man, you can come in and play spoiler. And as you said, maybe his career's on the line. You come in and do something special. All of a sudden, you got a new contract. Things are looking up for you. You got big things going on. So I like the matchup, but you're probably right. This is probably about the last one where you start saying, okay, now it's time. Let's get you in the rankings. And listen, I've talked to Bo Nickal. I know he wants it. You know what I mean? To be clear, this is not Bo Nickal on the sideline saying, guys, I'm not ready. Please slow play me. You know, I can't take those assignments just yet. I'm still developing as a fighter. No. That man wants to face. If you gave that man a title shot right now, he would say, I'm in. Sign me up. Yep, I can take that challenge.
That's my point exactly. I am such a fan of Bo Nickal.
I am too.
He is such an amazing athlete. His wrestling is world class. His chain wrestling, his submissions with it are all so next level that's how confident I am in him. And that's just the reason posing the questions. I'm not doing it as opposed to taking the road less traveled or the easier path. I'm just saying it because I recognize I have been in this fight game for so long now, and I have seen so many top quality athletes. I can tell you on the regional scene, when I reffed Bryce Mitchell early in his amateur career, I said, that is somebody special, right? And other guys that have made it to the UFC. Danny Barlow, who makes his UFC debut next month, I reffed him as an amateur. I said, and I think it was his second fight. I said, that kid is going to the UFC. You know, Raheem Rambo Forrest, I reffed him as an amateur, I said, with the tutelage, that guy is going to the UFC. And I can see it, and just like you can. And we know that in Bo Nickal. And we knew he was going to the UFC with no amateur fights, not even early in his career. In his amateur wrestling career, we could see the special athlete that he was. And that's the only reason I say all that is because I recognize very early the extreme talent and just specimen that this guy is.
That's beautiful, man. It's well said. And I'm not being silly here when I say this. You've actually changed my outlook on that, because I was very much in the camp of don't rush the guy. Don't expect too much from him early. Like, let the guy develop as a fighter, because I think that really is important, right? I mean, people just don't understand it from the outside looking in what it takes to be comfortable in there, what it takes to gain that experience, and how, invaluable that is, how important that is. And so I was very much in the camp of don't rush the guy. But you're right. Everything you said is 100% true, where there's certain guys you look at, there's guys you look at and you're like, that dude deserves to be in the UFC. There's other guys you look at and you go like, that dude is going to be a UFC champion someday. Bo Nickal is one of those guys where you look at him and you're like, oh, that guy is going to be a UFC champion someday. So because of that, rush. And I think what's important to notice is I think of that is like, this is not like boxing where you have to be undefeated or you're not marketable or nobody cares about you. If he rushes to the top and he gets tested and he has a stumbling block, fine. Guess what? He's not going to stop. This is who he is. This is what he does. This is that guy.
And the nature of him, he would triple down and be even more of a beast.
100%.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know what, man? Literally, you have changed my outlook on it. Now I'm like, you know what? Let's strap the rocket ship to this guy. Let's put him up there as quickly as possible. And if it turns out he comes up short, cool. No worries. There's still plenty of time on his side. This guy has the mentality, the fortitude, the physical abilities, the skill set that a setback is not going to be detrimental to his career. It's not going to destroy who he is. There's some guys that you go, man, if they get up there, and listen, it's a real thing. You get up there, you think you're that guy, you lose, you get your butt handed to you. Yeah, and it breaks you, right? Like everything changes, your outlook changes, everything. This is not that guy. As you said, a loss to him is just going to make him even more dangerous because that dude's going to get even more hungry. He's going to be staying even later at the gym. He's going to be doing even more reps. He's going to be doing that, so I'm with you. If this goes, and again, a mixed martial arts fight is a mixed martial arts fight. That's what we love about it, is anything can happen. But if Bo Nickal does what we think Bo Nickal can do and should do in this fight, I think I'm with you now, man. You have moved me into that camp. Let's get this guy up to the top. Let's give him some serious competition.
Well, and a lot of the reasons I think that is not from like you shouldn't slow play your career. You absolutely should. But there are certain people that are going to rise to an occasion, no matter who you put him up against. And and I firmly believe he is that guy. He is one of that guys. That's why I say him and Chimaev is a pick'em for me right now.
Be a hell of a fight, right?
Oh
Dude,
I'm like,
Man,
wait, sorry.
I would love to see that, man. I don't know if that's the if the casuals know
No,
that yet.
the
But
UFC
for
is
us,
not going to want to put that in right away.
no,
But give it a year and a half.
oh, would love.
Dude,
to
they're
see that.
headlining Allegiant Stadium with that fight in a year and a half. They could headline Allegiant Stadium.
And Bo has had that vision, bro. He's like, I see that. He's like, I'm gonna headline inside that building someday. Maybe with me and Hamzat, maybe with somebody else. I'm gonna headline in that building someday. So, man, if he can make that come to fruition, but he seems like he's got the capabilities, man. He seems like that guy to me.
Yeah, I agree. That's what pressure builds diamonds, man. So, all right, let's move on. A little touchy subject here. Kind of last thing we'll dive into. And I think you're a great person to talk to about it because you're a media personality. But Jon Anik expressed frustration with MMA fans in the wake of the Dricus du Plessis-Sean Strickland fight. And I don't want to get this wrong, so I am going to read it. Kind of what he said, and a little disparaging around MMA fans. I'm going to, first off, before I even read it, he gets a pass. I'm just going to say that. Okay.
100%. Jon Anik, come on. That dude's royalty. That dude's royalty.
But here are his words. Whether they're in context or out of context, I'm reading the transcript. I'm growing tired of this MMA space a little bit and just the morass of negativity when there's a close fight. Because even if you and I both thought Dricus du Plessis won the fight, we try to present the information respectfully, Anik said. When I go on X or when I go on YouTube comments, it seems like there are a lot of these fans that are just in attack mode. I don't know if their fans are casual fans or not, but I appreciate the passion. But I'm getting to a point where at 45 years of age, where I don't know how much time I have left in the MMA space because if I go do pro football, I'm not necessarily going to be dealing with the lowest common denominator all the time. He does go on to say, I don't know if I feel like there are a lot of malice and disrespect from the fan base. We can disagree. Don't take it from me. Demetrius Johnson, Kenny Florian thought DDP won the fight. It's just been very off-putting with the negativity and that has permeated my feed since Saturday night. And I'm just not sure how much longer I have in this space. A lot to pick apart there. I don't want to pick it apart. Two things that I do want to say. Said the MMA fan base is the lowest common denominator. That's a nicer way of saying that they're bottom feeders.
Yep.
The second point is saying I can't take any much more of this. I'm thinking I may retire, go to pro football. I'm going to first come out and say we are all emotional creatures. We say things that are heightened at a time when we feel disrespected, sad, happy, mad, whatever. Put any emotion into that. You seem to exude that. I give him a pass.
Yep. 100%. I think you have to. And look, again, you're talking about social media, right? I mean, that's what he says it by name. He says X or YouTube comments. He didn't say when I run into people on the streets and I talk to people in the hotel lobby, because people talk differently in person than they do online, right? They say mean stuff and they say silly stuff. And I think it's so important to remember sometimes, because listen, I've had those same things. I mean, obviously I've been in the sport for a long time.
I think you're the perfect guy. I mean, golly.
Yeah. I've been in these moments, man. I've had these stuff. Obviously I had my whatever it was with Colby Covington, and then a bunch of fans come out and echo what he says. And it's annoying, right? You're like, man, I'm just doing my job, right? Like, I'm just sitting here like trying to earn a paycheck just like you are. I love the sport just like you do. And I'm fortunate enough to work in this business. I do it not because I'm getting rich. I do it because I love it, and I want to be a part of this. And then you see that and you're like, man, come on. And you said it, we're emotional and it does get to you. And I think that's difficult. You know what I mean? We were talking about Miesha Tate earlier. I remember Miesha Tate one time saying, that one of the things she hates about social media is it gives people access to you that don't deserve to have access to you. And when I first heard her say that, I was like, well, that's kind of what a way to say, oh, you're just so important that people don't deserve access to you. But it's like, wait a minute. I mean, what other job do you have? You know what I mean? We're like, you're in the office selling insurance all day, and somebody just rolls into your office and starts telling you how shitty you are at your job and like, why you suck so much and da-da-da-da. You don't see it, you know what I mean? But you have this social media and it does impact you and it affects you. And I felt bad for Jon when I saw that. I don't know that maybe in retrospect he wishes, I'm just guessing, maybe he wishes it didn't get as much attention as it had, that maybe it didn't get featured the way it was.
Come out and said he apologized for it. He spoke out of emotion. He apologized after The all-wise man, Sean Strickland, tweet, the MMA fans are the reason you get a paycheck. Like, let's not forget that. Which, truth be told, he's 100% correct. And so we do leave it to the all-wise Sean Strickland to remind us the common senseness in our emotionality, right?
Yeah, normally when I get into a situation and I'm wondering what I should do and what path I should go down, I sit back and I say, what would Sean Strickland do in this situation? And I use that to kind of guide me for my principles and really help me make the proper decision. But again, what do we always talk about with Sean Strickland? He says some weird stuff, but then you boil it down and there is some value behind it. And he's right. I mean, insulting the fan base is not a great move overall. They are the reason that you have a job. You know what I mean? And they are value, they are entitled to their opinion, right? I mean, Jon Anik is part of the show, right? I mean, he gets his paycheck from the UFC.
Voice of the UFC.
He's the voice of the UFC. He's the voice of the sport for that reason. You know what I mean? So people are going to have their opinions one way or the other, and they're allowed to have them. And I think you just have to deal with it. And I think that's hard though. I mean, to realize that like people are just having their opinion. And look, I guarantee you, because again, I've been in that situation, where I've had people online, whether it be YouTube comments, whether it be X, whether it be whatever, say some stuff that is fairly vile, right? Where I'm like, why are you saying that to me, dude? Like, I like, you know how many times that's happened to me face to face in person? It's about zero. You know what I mean? I've had people that might walk up to me and be like, hey, man. In fact, this past weekend, I had somebody I met and they said, you know what, man, I got to be honest with you. I don't always agree with your opinions, but I appreciate what you do for the sport, man. And I'm a fan. I'm like, cool. You know what I mean? I get it. You're not going to agree with what I think. We're going to disagree on who won a fight. We're going to disagree of who deserves the next title shot. We're going to disagree what Bo Nickal should do next or whatever. You know what I mean? But we can have discussions about it. But online is different, man. And I think you just have to, and it sucks. I wish you could have valuable discussion and and you can. Sometimes there are people, there's some great ones, but you're going to have to sift through some stuff on the side. And I do feel bad for Jon Anik that he got, that it got to him, basically, that he got that emotion.
Yeah, and he did issue an apology saying he was at a heightened state of being emotional. And so, I mean, it makes sense. My mom once said, hey, if you want to say something back, sleep on it. If you still want to say it the next day, then go ahead.
That's solid. That's solid advice right there. Not always the easiest to execute, but I would say that's valuable.
Not for a guy like me.
No, I think that's valuable advice, especially when you're talking about like the workplace or, whether it be, relationships that you value and that sort of thing. Is like, man, just chill. You know what I mean? Just chill a little bit. Don't go with your first reaction. But if you still feel that way, then yeah, voice it the next day.
Yeah. So Jon Anik,
good job, Mom.
He's still the man to me though, bro. Sean Strickland, man. I still think you're nuts. I still think you're wise beyond your years at the same time in certain things you say.
A Sean Strickland helpline or something, right? Where you just need some advice in your life and you're like, I don't know who
to reality show. Let's be honest.
100%.
Like
100%.
He needs to be the new Big Brother of just a camera following him in at all times. Like, I'm sure we're at the point where a drone, he doesn't even know, so he wouldn't be putting on for the camera. A drone could just follow him at all times. I would subscribe to that streaming channel if it only played that.
If there was a drone following Sean Strickland 24 hours a day and live streaming, how many days would it last before he got arrested?
He would break all sorts of streaming records, though.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, you must see. I mean, look, think about that. And listen, that drone better be able to fly inside Extreme Couture so we can watch the sparring sessions, right? We get to watch the sparring sessions.
But it needs to be out of the way of his guns, too. So it's like a catch-22 here.
But I mean, just to see what he does in the gym and then just to hang out in his life outside, I mean, unbelievable. The man says some wild stuff, but there's some truth at the base of everything he says.
I would love to have a beer with him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm just like, hey, I'm going to throw out 3 topics, pick whichever one and go. And I'm just going to sit back and just be like.
Amazing. That sounds like a future Cageside with John Morgan special at some point. John Morgan, Eric McMahon, Sean Strickland, frosty beverages, cameras, and see what happens.
How was the inaugural CFFC Muay Thai event? this week?
Really good, man. Oh my gosh, the crowd that showed up was amazing, man. 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. We've done a lot of events there. It may have been more packed than we've ever done for any MMA event, any submission grappling event. I mean, the people showed up. It was fun. It was a full circle moment for me, man, because Muay Thai is the sport that kind of launched my passion into martial arts and ended up, being this career for me that I've had for so long. So it was cool to be able to be on the mic and call it. And great start, great inaugural event. We're already talking about some tweaks we want to make, some changes we want to make, but from a starting point,
white ring is just so clean.
So we were actually saying the same thing before the even night got started. Everything was all set up. The lights were on. We were going through rehearsals, and I was looking over at Rob Haydack, and we were sitting there looking at like, damn, that looks good, right? I mean, like it just looks sharp. The white ropes, the white mat.
I saw a picture of it. Muay Thai was my first love as well. And so I just looked at it. I was like, oh, that just looks, I wish I was there. But what do you got going on this weekend?
Listen, I'm going to be heading out to North Carolina. We're going to be doing CFFC match day. It'll be the final college wrestling event of the year for us. It's a Southern Conference showdown, conference rivals, Campbell University and Appalachian State. I think I'm actually going to be on the microphone for that one. So I'm not just doing production. Yeah, we're finalizing that today, but we had some late scheduling changes. So I think I'm going to be on the mic for that, which is exciting for me because, man, even though I will...
You know the point system pretty well?
I do, yeah. And I mean, I will readily admit I'm not the expert in it, but being as involved as I have this year, it's made me more of an expert, and it's really made me more of a passionate fan about it as well, man. Just what they're doing out there, the athletes that are doing it, it's amazing. So we
should take a bromance trip, dude, and go to the NCAAs.
Dude, March. I've already got the dates on my calendar. I haven't booked any travel yet, but I like where you're going with that, man. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. Especially, get Letterfine involved, get a couple other people. Rob, we go out and drink some beers, watch some wrestling.
We should make that happen. I mean, the only way we're going to make it happen, though, I mean, I got to know if your schedule's clear. I mean, you might have a UFC event that weekend. I mean, you're getting these big calls. You're flying out to Las Vegas. I mean, you're big time, bro. So we'll just have to find out if you can make it happen.
I'll try to fit it in my schedule, but yes, man, dude, I'm pretty pumped. This Saturday, Apex Center, your boy will be there.
I love it, man. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be back. My event's on Friday, so I'll be flying Saturday, so I'll be back in the building with you.
Cool. Maybe we'll grab a beer that night after the event.
I love it. All
right, sounds good. Well, there wasn't a lot to cover, but we somehow got 57 minutes out of it. But that's just because of the nerds we are about this game. But Kayla Harrison signs with the UFC 300 taking shape. Jon Anik says some emotional words, backtracks on it. Almighty wise man Sean Strickland says some words of advice, but Anik always gets a pass. And Morgan's going out to match day. Eric's flying out to Vegas. Then we may meet up for a beer. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.